The first red flag wasn't the note. It was the silence. After 3 weeks of hauling steel coils across 5 states, I was 2 exits from home when Clara stopped answering. No almost there text, no grab milk, nothing. Just a quiet void where her voice should have been. I pulled into our dusty driveway just past midnight. The porch light was off. Odd, since she always left it on when I was gone overnight, let alone for weeks. The desert air was still, thick with that scorched sage scent you only get after a high Arizona sun fades into night. My boots crunched over gravel as I stepped up to the door. It wasn't locked. The silence inside hit harder than the heat ever could. The hum of the fridge was the only sound. Our dog, Ladybird, was gone, her bowl missing too. I called out once, twice. My voice echoed back like it didn't belong there anymore. Then I saw it. A single piece of paper on the kitchen table, folded twice. My name in Clara's looping cursive. Jed, don't panic. I did what I had to. You'll understand soon. Please don't look for me until you're ready to hear the truth. Clara. No apology, no explanation. Just that. I sat down slowly, the vinyl chair creaking beneath me. My first instinct wasn't heartbreak. It was calculation. I reached for my phone and opened our bank app. 0. Every account, our checking, savings, the little travel fund we'd stashed for a trip to Bryce Canyon someday, all wiped clean. Even my fuel card had been maxed out, used at gas stations 2 towns over while I was hauling eastbound through Kansas. Clara wasn't just gone. She'd taken everything. The woman I married 11 years ago was steady, quiet, the type to refill the sugar jar before it hit the halfway mark. We met through mutual friends at a roadside diner and built a life off long hours, hot meals, and honest work. She handled the finances while I drove, trusted her without blinking. Now that trust felt like oil on my tongue, slick, foul, impossible to swallow. I didn't sleep that night. I went room to room like I was looking for signs of a break-in, but the real break-in had happened inside my own head. I opened drawers, her jewelry gone, her birth certificate and passport gone. Even the genealogy kit she'd been messing with last fall, missing. That stuck with me. Clara had become obsessed with that DNA test after Christmas, said it was for fun, tracing roots back to Ireland or something. But I remembered how she started asking weird questions about my mom's side, about a cousin I hadn't seen in years. At the time, I chalked it up to curiosity. Now, it felt like foreshadowing I'd ignored. I called Earl the next morning. Old friend, fellow trucker, ran diagnostics like a wizard on his rig. He answered on the first ring. Jed, you sound like you've seen a ghost. Worse, I said. Clara's gone. Took the money, left a damn riddle for a goodbye. You want me to run a trace? I hesitated, then nodded, even though he couldn't see it. Yeah, I need to know where she went, and why. Because deep down, something told me this wasn't just about money. Clara wasn't reckless. She was scared. But of what? When silence replaces routine and trust gives way to suspicion, how do you react when initial doubts turn into undeniable, unsettling proof?
Earl showed up that afternoon in his patched-up Kenworth like he was hauling freight straight from the truth. He parked on the gravel, his dog Rufus barking once before settling back into the passenger seat. Earl didn't waste time. I pulled Clara's activity through her DNA kit portal, he said, handing me a tablet. They're tied into half a dozen other services. Folks don't realize how much personal info you give away with a cheek swab. The screen glowed with a tree, names, dates, connections, and a series of flagged notifications. One line was highlighted. New potential familial match, high confidence, Thomas Hayward, biological relative. I didn't recognize the name, but Clara had clicked on it multiple times, dug into the profile, downloaded files. There was even a search for Thomas Hayward plus Arizona plus criminal record in her browser history. My chest tightened. What the hell was she looking for? I muttered. She didn't just take your money, Jed. She rerouted it. Earl tapped the tablet again. I tracked the wire transfers. She sent it to a digital wallet, not her name, but connected to an IP that pinged from a place called Belen, New Mexico, motel Wi-Fi. I could almost hear Clara's voice in that dusty roadside motel, alone, typing in passwords, watching some truth fall apart in front of her. She's not hiding, I said. She's waiting, watching. Or planning, Earl replied. Later that night, I sat in our empty kitchen with every light off, just the blue of the fridge clock pulsing against the walls. That's when I remembered the smart home speaker Clara had bought for my birthday, said it'd help us sync schedules. I'd always ignored it, but she used it all the time. It logged commands, voice prompts. When I pulled up the history, it got worse. Play playlist for emergency. Where's the nearest emergency clinic? How to disappear safely. Can DNA tests be wrong? The timestamps lined up with the week before I came home. She was unraveling something, fast. I kept thinking back to the nights on the road, our calls getting shorter. Her voice was tight, clipped. Once I thought I heard her crying and asked if everything was okay. She said it was allergies. Lies, layered like dust on the dashboard. You don't see it at first. Then, one day, the light hits it just right. I drove out the next morning, headed south toward Belen. Earl offered to come, but I told him no. I needed to do this part alone. The highway stretched empty, dotted with low shrubs and scattered trailers. I passed a rusted sign for a local ghost town and thought about how much of Clara I'd already lost before she vanished. Somewhere between truck stops and broken promises, the woman I knew had become a stranger I had to chase. Halfway there, Earl texted me a file he'd decrypted from Clara's cloud storage. It was a PDF, a scanned newspaper clipping from 1983. Headline: Hayward family tied to unsolved disappearance in Pinal County. I pulled over. My palms were sweating. There was a photo of a man, blurred with age in ink, Thomas Hayward. The same name from the DNA report. The article talked about a possible cover-up involving a sheriff's office. Nothing ever proven. The story fizzled out, but the last line stood out. One surviving family member reportedly left the state shortly after, identity sealed due to age. That's when it hit me. That name, Hayward. My mother's maiden name was Howard, but I remembered how Grandma used to say it was changed at some point, shortened, Americanized. I never thought much of it. Clara had found something in my bloodline, something that scared her enough to steal everything we had and run. But here's what chilled me to the bone. The cloud folder's name was Exit Plan. Inside were labeled subfolders: Emergency Funds, Route Map, Jed's Family Background, For Jed, Open If I'm Gone. I didn't open that last one. Not yet. Sometimes the mind resists what the heart already knows. But trust, once broken, doesn't die quietly. It claws. I pulled into Belen just past sunset. The sun bled out over the desert in long streaks of rust and gold. I found the motel, the kind with flickering neon and doors that opened right onto the parking lot. Her car was there. I sat in my cab for nearly an hour, watching, wondering if she was pacing inside, waiting for me, or if she'd bolt again. Then she stepped out, not running, not crying, just standing there, in jeans and a windbreaker, like she'd known I was coming. Our eyes locked across the gravel lot, and that's when I saw something I hadn't expected: relief. Like I'd arrived just in time for something she couldn't face alone. What would you do when faced with irrefutable proof of betrayal that demands an immediate response, even if part of you suspects it was done to protect you?
I didn't knock. Clara was standing just inside the motel door, holding it open like she'd rehearsed this moment in her head 1,000 times. Her eyes flicked to my hands, empty, then to my face, probably looking for rage, maybe relief. I gave her neither. "I drove 450 miles, Clara," I said, voice low. "You gonna make me stand out here and guess what's real?" She stepped back, silently. I crossed the threshold. The room smelled like motel soap and stale air. A duffel bag sat half-packed on the bed. Her laptop was open, screen frozen on a file titled, "Jed, the Truth." I didn't look at it. Not yet. She shut the door softly. "I didn't leave you," she said, barely above a whisper. "I was trying to give you a way out, before someone else made that choice for you." "What are you talking about?" I asked. "You cleaned out our accounts, took Ladybird, left a damn riddle like I was supposed to decode my own abandonment?" She flinched, but didn't move. I stepped forward, my boots heavy against the laminate floor. "Start talking, Clara, or I swear to God I'll open that file and let it speak for you." She sat down slowly, hands in her lap. "Your mother's family. Hayward, not Howard. The DNA confirmed it. I didn't know until I started digging. I just thought it'd be fun at first. But there's a sealed record on your side, tied to a disappearance back in the 80s. A man named Carter Reddick vanished near Pinal County, a whistleblower. And your uncle, Thomas Hayward, he was connected." I stayed standing. My chest was tight. "And you thought what? That if someone knew I was related, they'd come after me?" She looked up. "I found threads on message boards, posts deleted hours after they went up. It's not ancient history, Jed. Someone's still watching that story. Your name's connected now through the DNA database. You got tagged. I saw the email. It said match flagged. So instead of talking to me, you emptied our life savings and disappeared? I couldn't protect you if I stayed. If I told you, you'd never believe me. You'd try to fix it. You always do. And this wasn't something you could fix. It had to look like you didn't know." Theater Romant or not, I nearly laughed, but it came out dry and bitter. "You left me in a home full of ghosts and a bank account full of zeros," I said. "I don't call that protection. I call that betrayal." She pulled something from the drawer, a flash drive, placed it on the nightstand like a peace offering. "It's all there. Documents, names, logs from the DNA site, screenshots of threats that got deleted. I couldn't go to the cops. I didn't know who to trust. But I saved everything. If you still want the truth, take it." I didn't reach for it. I just looked at her. And for the first time, I saw not the woman who left me, but the woman who was terrified, convinced that some long-dead secret had woken up and put a target on my back. Motivational reflection swelled quietly in my gut. I wasn't just here to understand why she ran. I was here to reclaim something, my future, my dignity. I hadn't driven across the desert to beg. I came to choose for myself what I did with the truth, not to be shielded by fear, but shaped by it. I picked up the drive. Then her phone buzzed, just once. She didn't move. I looked down at the screen. Unknown number. "You shouldn't have opened that folder. They're already watching." We both froze. I looked back at her. "What the hell did you get us into, Clara?" Her eyes filled with tears, not regret, dread. "They were supposed to be gone," she whispered. "I thought it was old, buried, but someone's still out there." How do you proceed when the truth is revealed, but the battle is far from over, and someone is watching your every move? I drove out of Bellin just after dawn. Clara asleep in the passenger seat, Ladybird curled between us like a living reminder of everything we'd nearly lost. But I wasn't feeling relief. I was shaking. Not from fear, from fury. The betrayal ran deeper than money. Clara had rewritten our life without telling me, handing me a script only after the third act had already started. And the part that gnawed at me most, she still thought she was protecting me. You don't protect someone by taking away their right to choose. That's not love. That's control, dressed in the costume of sacrifice. And yet, part of me still ached for the woman I married, the one who laughed at my bad jokes over $2 coffee, who danced barefoot in the kitchen during rainstorms. I didn't know where she went. I just knew I had to protect what was left of myself. I dropped Clara at a safe place Earl arranged, an old friend's trailer outside Las Cruces, off the grid. We agreed she'd stay put until I figured out what to do with the drive. Then I drove straight to a small law office in Albuquerque, the kind that doesn't advertise, just keeps the lights on and the secret safer than a bank vault. Earl had vouched for the guy, Wes Lantry, ex-prosecutor turned fixer. I dropped the flash drive on his desk like it was radioactive. You touch this thing, I told him, you better wear gloves. Wes leaned back, thin fingers steepled. What do you want from me, Jed? 2 things. I want legal insurance, and I want a way to make sure if something happens to me, someone hears the truth, loud. His eyes sharpened. Survivor clause, affidavit, off-site data mirror, maybe a small press leak, whatever it takes. He nodded once. And the woman? She stays out of it for now. He slid a folder across the desk. Then you'll want to sign this. Protects your remaining assets, limits her legal liability, locks down any future inheritance or claims on joint property. You're about to kick over a hornet's nest, Jed. I signed without blinking. My hands didn't shake anymore. Out in the hallway, I paused, watched the rain slide down the dusty window pane like the desert was weeping in reverse. I'd never thought of myself as the kind of man who needed legal armor. But this wasn't about paranoia. It was about dignity. Sometimes, protecting yourself isn't cowardice. It's survival. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I was rebuilding the floor under my feet. Back on the road, I called Earl. You sure she didn't open that second file? He asked. She didn't. I checked the metadata. It's still unopened. Earl exhaled hard. That's good, because someone did. What? That same IP from Bellin? It pinged again. Not from her motel room, 2 miles down the highway. Public Wi-Fi at a diner. You think someone's tracking us? I don't think, Earl said grimly. I know. And they've got a copy now. Just then, my truck's GPS display flickered. A new route suggestion appeared, one I hadn't programmed. Proceed to alternate route. I hadn't touched anything. I killed the system, pulled to the shoulder. The desert stretched out silent and endless. Clara's warning wasn't paranoia. We weren't alone in this anymore. When your plan is in motion, but the stakes suddenly rise, how far are you willing to go to finish what you started and protect what still matters? I never found out exactly who accessed that file. Wes believed it was someone tied to the Hayward story, a ghost from decades ago with just enough reach to spook people like Clara into silence. But once the legal firewall was up and the mirrored drive made it into a journalist's hands, the fear started to lose its grip. Within 3 weeks, a regional investigative outlet ran the story. Not the sensational kind, but enough to stir old names and rattle quiet skeletons. Wes handled the leak, anonymously, cleanly. I never appeared in the article. Neither did Clara. But the pressure lifted. The bank accounts I could rebuild. The miles I'd driven, that was muscle memory. What mattered was that I'd reclaimed my agency, my right to stand in the fire instead of being pushed out of it for my own good. I didn't divorce Clara, but I didn't go back home either.
We talked, quietly, over long stretches of empty desert roads. I told her what she'd taken from me, not just money, but choice. I told her what I learned about forgiveness, that it doesn't come wrapped in, "I had no other option." It's earned, moment by moment, in the spaces where fear gives way to honesty. She moved to Las Cruces, started over as a medical records assistant. Simple, quiet work. No more aliases, no more digital trails. I kept driving, but something changed. I joined a small dispatch co-op for independent truckers, ran the books, helped other guys avoid the scams I'd survived. Earl and I built a quiet network of old hands and new blood. Turns out, there's a surprising demand for men who've been burned and still kept their hands steady on the wheel. Therapy came, eventually, not the sitting on a couch kind. More like talking to a stranger at a track stop at 3 a.m. and realizing your story has weight. That when someone listens without judgment, you start to speak like the man you're becoming, not the one who got betrayed. I took up photography, old-school film, found a battered Nikon at a pawn shop in El Paso, and started taking shots of places most people speed past. Cracked roads, forgotten diners, the long, slow sunsets that bleed over desert skies. Somewhere in there, I found peace. Clara and I meet once a month now. Neutral ground. Sometimes it's coffee, sometimes just silence. I don't know if we'll ever go back to what we were. But I do know this. I'm not chasing the past anymore. And that, more than anything, is the win. The road ain't always straight, and neither is love, I reckon. But truth, that's the only compass worth following. I learned that the hard way, by losing more than I thought I could bear, and gaining a version of myself I didn't know was waiting. Some folks run from the fire. I walked through it. Came out scarred, sure, but walking my own damn path. When trust is shattered, but the truth is finally yours, can you rebuild without going back? Can good intentions ever justify betrayal, or is silence its own kind of violence? Share your own story or thoughts in the comments below.